Donald Trump, after saying that he wouldn't, has extended the U.S. ceasefire with Iran, which then responded by attacking and apparently seizing commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. But with still no date set for talks, it's unclear what's actually going to happen next, right? I mean, the American and Iranian negotiating teams, they were meant to be meeting in Pakistan today for a second round of talks. But throughout the day yesterday, it became increasingly clear that that wasn't going to happen, right? You had Trump claiming that he didn't want to extend the ceasefire and expected to continue bombing Iran if a deal wasn't reached, after he had previously threatened to blow up every single bridge and power plant in the country without an agreement. But of course, Trump has also repeatedly backtracked, backed down, and contradicted himself on nearly every aspect of this war, from the status of negotiations to the whereabouts of his lead negotiator. And so it actually wasn't all that surprising last night when you had him taking to Truth Social to reveal that the ceasefire would be extended until, quote, such time as Iran's leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal and such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded one way or the other. He also claimed that his decision was in response to a request from the Pakistani government, and you actually also soon after had Pakistan's prime minister expressing his thanks to Trump for, quote, graciously accepting his government's request to extend the ceasefire to allow ongoing diplomatic efforts to take their course. But maybe one of the most notable things is that Trump claimed that his decision to extend the ceasefire until Iran could present a unified proposal was based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, right? And we talked about the divides believed to exist within the regime yesterday, but also apparently they may go even deeper than previously believed, especially thanks to Israel's assassination of the man who had been Iran's de facto leader. Or you had one U.S. official reportedly telling Axios that without this guy bridging the gap, the IRGC generals now running the country are openly at odds with the negotiating team, saying we saw that there is an absolute fracture inside Iran between the negotiators and the military, with neither side having access to the supreme leader who is not responsive. And according to them and other sources, this division became more clearly known on Friday when the country's foreign minister announced the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but the IRGC refused to go along. And so yesterday, JD Vance apparently had his bags packed, he was ready to go to Pakistan, but he found himself just waiting for the IRGC generals to let Iran's negotiating team travel to meet him, which obviously never happened. And now, if those reports are true, it's unclear how long the two factions will actually have to get on the same page. If we're taking it at face value, Trump's announcement seems to suggest that the ceasefire is extended indefinitely. But you also had one of those officials speaking to Axios saying that it isn't open-ended, claiming Trump is only willing to give another 3 to 5 days of ceasefire to allow the Iranians to get their shit together. But even if all that's true, some of Iran's leaders may see this as the latest example of just Trump bluffing and backing down, possibly confirming to them that they're more ready to weather the pain of this war and the current economic standoff in the Strait of Hormuz than Trump is. And you had one expert explaining the Iranian regime only cares about its survival, not about its people suffering, and it does still see this as an existential battle with the United States. And adding, that's why it's not going to blink, regardless of how much the Iranian people suffer. And so with that, the first response to Trump's ceasefire extension from Iran appeared to come from an advisor to the country's Speaker of Parliament, who said, the extension of the ceasefire by Donald Trump has no meaning. The losing side cannot set the terms. And a short time later, the UK Maritime Trade Operations Center reported that an IRGC gunboat attacked a container ship off the coast of Oman. But then another few hours passing before the organization reported that a second cargo ship had come under attack about 8 nautical miles west of Iran. And then you had a semi-official Iranian news outlet reporting that these attacks were part of an enforcement operation by Iranian authorities. And saying of the second ship, it appears this container ship did not heed warnings from the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran and was therefore targeted. The IRGC Navy claiming around the same time that it had seized 2 cargo vessels and was directing both ships to Iran's coast after they attempted to navigate, quote, without the necessary permits, and adding, disrupting the order and security of the Strait of Hormuz is our red line. And overall, it seems like this might be a tit-for-tat response to American forces seizing an Iranian flagship in the Arabian Sea on Sunday and boarding an oil tanker in the Indian Ocean on Tuesday, especially as you had a top Iranian lawmaker writing on Twitter, we will not remain silent against the Epstein pirates. An eye for an eye, an oil tanker for an oil tanker. But with all that, as there does appear to be people on both sides at least interested in making a deal, we got to talk about what that deal might actually look like. And very notably there, Trump's reportedly authorized his negotiating team to consider an agreement involving similar trade-offs to the one that was negotiated under Barack Obama. Again, even though as recently as the beginning of this week, Trump repeated his claim that the agreement was one of the worst deals ever made having to do with the security of our country, with him then also adding it was a guaranteed road to a nuclear weapon. And so, as one example, you had Trump repeatedly criticizing the Obama administration for unfreezing tens of billions of dollars worth of Iranian assets and sending Iran $1.7 billion in cash to settle a decades-old legal dispute over an unfinished arms deal. But now, Trump's reportedly open to the possibility of unfreezing Iranian assets worth around $20 billion, and that money serving as a bargaining chip to secure Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. And a key thing is that Iran only built up that stockpile of highly enriched uranium in the years after Trump pulled out of the Obama deal. And then the other big issue that you have right now is what Iran would be willing to agree to in terms of restrictions on future enrichment. Or with one expert saying they're running into the same fundamental hurdle that shaped the long decade plus of negotiations that finally led to the Obama deal, which is that the Iranians are completely immovable on the question of enrichment. So then the other question might be whether Trump is completely immovable on his desire to permanently bar Iran from enriching to any level. And actually on that front, you have some saying that he could compromise and still play it off as a win. Or because Iran, they've reportedly been open to a complete ban on enrichment for a limited amount of time. So you had Wendy Sherman, who is the lead U.S. negotiator with Iran under Obama, telling the Washington Post, if he gets a suspension of 10, 15, 20 years of enrichment, that will be more than we got on that element. But then she also added, but how will it be verified? It's totally unclear to me or anybody, probably to him. And what will Trump have to give in return? Well, we're gonna have to wait to find that out. What's definitely clear is that this war, it's already come with a cost. I mean, as we know, at least 13 US service members have been killed, and that doesn't even include the injured, the casualty count. And then on the Iranian side, out of more than 3,600 people who have reportedly been killed, at least 1,700 have been civilians, according to the human rights activist news agency. And that's not even counting the thousands of other deaths in the region, most in Lebanon as a result of Israel and Hezbollah's war there. Also, millions have been displaced, and the war has sent energy prices skyrocketing, with that now translating into higher prices in other areas as well. Various petroleum-derived products like clothes and crayons, for example, they're expected to get more expensive. And companies in every sector, from consumer goods to travel and mining, they're warning in quarterly earnings statements that the war is driving up costs, potentially leading to higher prices. I mean, even had the world's top condom maker saying it plans to raise prices by 20 to 30% and possibly more if supply chain disruptions continue. But also, all of that, it feels small compared to the projections that this fallout could plunge tens of millions into poverty and hunger. Also, in the meantime, it's probably the Iranians who are feeling the most economic pain, as things were already bad before the war and the US blockade. And while Trump and others, they've sometimes defended the war by highlighting the crimes and the brutality of the Iranian regime, I mean, the reality is that the same regime remains in power, and Trump's now trying to make a deal with them. And a huge thing is that the people he's talking to now might be even more extreme than some of those that ran the country before that he killed, which is also saying something, since the pre-war leadership oversaw the massacre of thousands of protesters earlier this year. And since then, there's also been speculation that the war has actually provided cover for a new crackdown on dissent, possibly involving a surge in executions. And even beyond all that, there's the potential impact this war will have had on American and European defense readiness. You have Reuters reporting recently that American officials have let some of their European counterparts know that previously agreed upon weapons deliveries are likely to be delayed because of the war. And in fact, you've got CNN now reporting that the military stockpile has some key missiles, that there is a near-term risk of running out of some of them if the US is involved in another conflict in the next few years. And while the Pentagon signed several contracts last month to boost missile production, it may still take years to replenish those stockpiles. And in fact, you have an analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies arguing that in the meantime, the US is now even worse prepared to take on what it described as a peer competitor such as China.